All right, so New York Times best-selling author and co-creator of the Whole30 program, Melissa has helped millions of people achieve their weight loss and health goals, and we're really excited to have her here today to talk, hot on the heels of her latest book release, Food Freedom Forever, Letting Go of Bad Habits, Guilt and Anxiety Around Food. Only released yesterday, so we are right at the cusp of it. And we're excited to have her here to talk to us about what that's all about, what the Whole30 is, and answer all our tough questions. So please join me in welcoming Melissa to Talk to Google.
Thank you.
All right. So it's a pleasure to have you here today, Melissa.
Thank you. I'm really excited.
I'm very excited too. As a person who's always super interested in all like the latest food crazes and exercise crazes, as most of us are, it's really great to have you here so you can kind of navigate things for us and tell us about yours and all of that. So
I'm excited.
Perfect. So, I mean, a lot of these people already know all about the Whole30. It's a very well-known program and pretty amazing, but tell us a little bit about it just to get us going.
Sure. So you can think about the Whole30 like pushing the reset button with your health, your habits, and your relationship with food. So for 30 days, you'll eliminate foods that the scientific literature and our clinical experience have shown to be really commonly problematic to varying degrees across a broad range of people. So you pull that stuff out completely for 30 days and you're going to evaluate what changes. Energy, sleep, digestion, mood, skin, athletic performance, recovery, cravings, any kind of symptoms, migraines, asthma, allergies, all of this stuff. You're going to see what happens in the absence of some of these potentially problematic triggers. At the end of the 30 days, you then put those foods back in very carefully and systematically, one at a time, like a scientific experiment, and you pay attention to what changes. So does your digestion get worse? Does your skin break out? Does that like shoulder pain come back? It allows you to figure out how food impacts you individually because there's no one size fits all. And it lets you create the perfect diet for you going forward.
So who is the Whole30 for? Is it for anyone? Is it for kids? Like anyone can do this?
I think everyone in the whole world should do the Whole30, but that's just me. We have a lot of medical doctors who are using our program with their patients and seeing amazing results with things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune conditions, but you don't have to be sick to benefit from the Whole30. So if you're just looking for improved energy, managing your cravings, reducing digestive distress, or weight loss, even though that's not the main focus of our program, the Whole30 is for you.
Okay, and so tell us a little bit more about what we can have on the Whole30 so we don't get into the what we can't.
I like that. I always like starting with the cans because the list of no's can be a little intimidating on the Whole30. So let's start with what you will be eating, and I'm going to paint a really good picture. So meat, seafood, and eggs, ideally naturally raised and fed, but you can have animal protein, and we encourage a moderate portion with every meal. So it's certainly not like meat. It's not a carnivorous plan. It's actually really moderate portions. You're eating lots and lots of plants. So lots of vegetables, fresh fruit. We're not afraid of things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, or fruit as a whole natural kind of nutrient-dense food. You're eating good healthy fats. So things like avocado, olives, olive oil, duck fat, ghee, coconut oil, and coconut products. And then you're doing herbs and spices, and people who do Whole30 recipes, like those who guest post on our Whole30 recipes Instagram feed, get incredibly creative with these really hearty, nourishing Whole30 meals.
So if I wanted the super paleo double fudge, whatever, as long as the ingredients are like fake fudge, can I eat them?
Oh, you're setting me up now, aren't you? So there is a rule in the Whole30 that says you're not allowed to recreate baked goods, treats, desserts, junk foods with technically compliant ingredients. So there is a way to make Whole30 compliant pancakes or muffins or cookies. But remember, the Whole30 is about changing your health, but also your habits and your emotional relationship with food. And these comfort foods are what make us feel so out of control. We start eating and we can't stop eating them. So if you're trying to change your habits and your relationship with food and you eat pancakes, muffins, and cookies, and then you do the Whole30 and continue to eat pancakes, muffins, and cookies, how much are those things going to change? So we do have a rule that says that's a no-no.
So what about, so you said we can have fruit.
Yeah.
I have this thing about fruit. I have a friend who says that no one ever got fat off of fruit, so you're fine. But if you saw my fruit mountain I have every morning and every afternoon working here, you'd be like, I think I'm like the person who might be able to do it. Is that good as a dessert replacement or whatever? Or?
So again, we don't generally encourage dessert replacements because even if it's a healthier choice, what we want to do is get you out of the habit of dessert. Like, I don't want you to feel like you have to have something sweet before the meal can feel complete. So if you want dessert occasionally, like great, eat it, that's fantastic, but I don't want you to feel like it's necessary. I'm not excuse me. I'm not afraid of eating fruit, but what I don't want you to do is use fruit to satisfy your sugar cravings. So if every day at 3 o'clock you're used to having a Snickers bar, and then you do the whole 30, and every day at 3 o'clock you're like, okay, well, I can't do a Snickers bar, so I'm going to do a Lara bar. It's a better food choice, but you're still feeding your brain the sugar that it's throwing a temper tantrum for. So you're not actually changing anything in that pattern. So it's not just about what you're eating, it's about why you're eating it and some of the emotional reasons behind that relationship with that particular food.
So how does the Whole30 really help you get at those emotional relationships? What do you just don't eat it if you're having the sugar craving? What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, no.
Don't eat it. Yeah.
A lot of these traditional diets just ask you to like white knuckle your way through them, right? They don't provide a lot of rationale. They don't provide support. They don't provide a big community. They're not giving you alternatives to not eating the cookie at 9 o'clock at night. So all you're doing is like willpower, white knuckling your way through it, thinking about what you're going to eat on day 31, the like carbapalooza that you're going to have, right? What we do on the Whole30 is provide alternatives. So because we limit those comfort foods that you would normally reach for, and because we've got really strong recommendations against like, okay, well, yes, they're just homemade plantain chips, but if you feel like you're not in control when you eat them, is that really what you want for your Whole30? We force people to find other ways to comfort themselves, to reward themselves, to self-soothe, to show love with other people in their lives, so that at the end of the program, you actually have some new habits to fall back on, not just the same habits with different foods.
What kind of things can we use besides food to self-soothe? Tough,
So,
right?
yeah, it's funny. It is tough, but I said on Instagram the other day, and so many people responded to it, like, you're not looking for a cookie, you're looking for a connection. And so often what I find is people who rely on food for those emotional, like to fill that emotional hole, like you're not going to find that at the bottom of a bag of potato chips. And we all know this, but we don't know what else to do. And because the food is super normally stimulating, incredibly rewarding, and it's got low satiety factors, like we overconsume and then we feel even worse about ourselves. And then we say, we're not going to do that again, except that we do because we don't know what else to do. And I find interpersonal connection to be so key in relieving anxiety and stress and having that motivation and that accountability and giving and receiving love. So I think the next time you find yourself in that situation where you're reaching for a food that you don't really want, but you don't know what else to do, reach out to someone else instead. Go see a friend, text message, phone call, make it as personal as you can. And I really would find it hard to believe that didn't relieve or fill you up with what you were looking for.
Right. And you have a whole Whole30 community, right, too, for
Yes.
people to reach out to you?
Yes.
What's that like?
The Whole30 community is incredibly robust, fiercely loyal, and I think one of the most positive and welcoming communities online. We've got almost 2 million photos hashtagged Whole30 on Instagram right now. I mean, it is thriving, and people are connecting with each other. So if you don't have someone at home or in your community that you're doing the Whole30 with, you can come to my house and we'll make sure that you stay motivated and accountable. We'll answer your questions. We'll provide you with support. I have a lot of people who will Snapchat me and say, like, I really want a cookie today. I don't know what else to do. And sometimes all they need is someone to say, like, you're not going out like that. And they're okay, and they keep going. So, I mean, this is how connected I am to our community and my entire team. So, yeah, I really am super proud of our Whole30 years.
That's great. That's really great. So the person who, like, I'm going to have a cookie today, I can't resist, they actually do it on the Whole30 program, then what happens?
So ideally with the Whole30, if you go off plan, you start over. And it's not because we're trying to be like a hazing or like the boot camp of paleo, because the basis, the foundation of the Whole30 is an elimination diet. You are eliminating these foods to see whether or not they work for you. And the analogy I like to use is, say you have 10 cats. And you want to know if you're allergic to cats. So you get rid of 9 of your cats. Do you feel better? Well, like, maybe, but you still have a cat. How are you supposed to know whether or not cats impact you if you've still got one hanging out? So You want to know if you're allergic to cats, you have 10 cats, you give up all 10 of your cats, but like Saturday morning, you like kick your heels up with the cat. Or Friday night, you're like, I'm just going to have like one little cat, right? Whether that's pizza or a beer or whatever it is you're thinking about, you can't accurately evaluate how these foods are impacting you if you're including them even a little bit in the plan. So it's 100% elimination for 30 days. Think of it like a scientific experiment. And if you do go off plan, I really encourage people to start over, both for the kind of physiological reasons, but also because I want you to honor the commitment that you made to yourself. 30 days.
So you mentioned, obviously, paleo in there. Is the Whole30 just a paleo diet? Are there differences?
There are significant differences. It's based on the general framework of a paleo diet because the research behind the foods that are eliminated on a paleo diet are pretty solid. Again, we're not saying these foods are good or bad. We're not saying these foods are healthy or less healthy for you. We're saying they're very commonly problematic to varying degrees, and I don't know how they work for you until you do the Whole30 and do this experiment and figure it out for yourself. So the foods that you eliminate on the Whole30, like grains, legumes, and dairy, are all foods that are also off limits with the paleo style diet. But we do include potatoes in a Whole30 because they're a real nutrient-dense food, and lots of paleo people say potatoes don't count. You're not allowed to do those like egg and banana pancakes that I talked about and some of the paleo treats and desserts that are out there. So there are some differences. Our program is for a very specific purpose.
And so when we're talking about, we do this Whole30, we make it, thank God. What happens next?
Yeah. So it can be scary, and that's really what Food Freedom Forever is about. Is people did the Whole30, we've had millions of people do it, and they have amazing success, and they feel like they really changed their habits, and it's like the first thing that's really worked for them, and then they're like, okay, now what? Because I don't want to go back to the way that I was eating, but I don't know how to not do that, especially in the face of a holiday, a vacation, a stressful event. So that's really what Food Freedom Forever is about. Is it's a 3-step plan to help people kind of get past that short-term dietary intervention and turn what they've learned into a lifetime of healthy habits.
So it kind of stemmed from the terror that people might feel when they're like, oh, I have to go back into the real world now, eat the real food.
Yeah.
What's it going to look like? I mean, maybe that's excitement, but I think for a lot of people, it's also terror.
It's like, we call it excited. It's like frightened and excited at the same time, right?
I like that.
You're excited to get back to some of the foods that you really love and see how they work for you, but at the same time, you feel so good that you just don't want to mess it up. And you're afraid that if you do let some of these foods back in, it's going to send you down this slippery slide of like feeling out of control again.
Yes.
And so I had a lot of, and I've provided a lot of guidance over the years about what to do, but never in a really clear, like step-by-step, do this, do that format. So this came from my community saying, like, I need more help. I need more help in life after the Whole30.
Yeah. You mentioned like the carbapalooza that could happen immediately following your 30-day, like 31. Yay, I can have all the pasta. But I don't think that's how it works, right? Tell us about the reintroduction.
Yeah, so, we did a survey. I think we had more than like 5,000 Whole30ers respond. And of those people who finished a Whole30 and said at the beginning of their program they thought they were going to want to eat all the things on day 31, 75% of them at the end said, I actually didn't want to. I felt so different and things had changed so much. My tastes had changed that I didn't want to do that. But in between the Whole30 and your sort of food freedom comes this reintroduction period. Remember, you eliminate and then you bring them back in. So we've got both a 10-day kind of fast track reintroduction outlined in the Whole30 book. And then we've got this kind of slow roll option for people who maybe don't want to bring everything back in within 10 days. But the reintroduction is like the money of the program. This is where you learn how these foods impact you and where you learn how much and how often and what kinds of foods you can bring back into your life so that it's delicious and healthy and feels sustainable, but in a way that's not going to mess you up in terms of how awesome you want to look and feel.
Great. So if we're slowly reintroducing things, what does it look like? Say, okay, today is dairy day. Do I go and eat like yogurt all day and top it off with like a dab of milk and then have a brick of cheese and ice cream?
Maybe not a brick of cheese.
No? Oh, okay.
But basically what you want to do, again, think of it like a scientific experiment. Dairy is going to be your experimental factor and the Whole30 is your control. So your entire diet for the whole day is going to be Whole30. The only thing you're adding back in is dairy. So you would do your typical Whole30 breakfast. Maybe it's some poached eggs, maybe a little bit of avocado and like a veggie medley and some mixed berries, but you're going to sprinkle some cheese on your eggs. So you're going to add the dairy back in a way that allows you to evaluate just the dairy component alone, and then you're going to go back to the Whole30 for 2 or 3 days and see what happens in terms of the reaction, because sometimes the reaction can take a day or so to manifest, depending on how sensitive you are.
So you don't want to overdo it, but slowly bring it in and test it out.
Yeah,
after.
and you have to do enough of it to really see. So if you just put a drop of milk in your coffee, like what are the chances that you're really going to notice an impact? So you want to do some cream in your coffee, you know, some cheese on your omelet, maybe a side of yogurt with your lunch, and then at dinner, you know, some other form of dairy that you really like. What you don't want to do is do, you know, a giant bowl of ice cream that also has cookie dough that also is topped with chocolate syrup, because then you're not going to know what's impacting you, the dairy or the gluten or the massive sugar bomb.
Sure. Yes. Okay. So what about people who, like, is there some way to do this if you don't want to go strict Whole30? They're pretty strict guidelines. I think that they make a lot of sense, and it's really great to find out. But some people are like, you know, so if I said I want to do this, but I don't care how alcohol affects me. I don't care if it makes me bloated. I don't care if it makes my skin break out. I want to try to get rid of all the other things, bring it all in. Can I still do a Whole30-ish program, or is it a no-no?
Doing the Whole30 is a little like being pregnant. Like you either are or you're not. There's no like kind of, right? So, you know, if you're gonna do the program, the way I describe it is like, if you're gonna come play my game, you need to play by my rules. And all I'm asking for is 30 days, and all I'm asking is for you to trust me for 1 month. And I've got 7 years of experience backing up my recommendations, but the Whole30 is not for everyone. So if you're vegan, for example, you can't do the Whole30 as written, because we are basically excluding all of your plant-based protein sources. And you know, the rules are rigid, and it's a lot to imagine giving up at once. It can be a very emotional journey. So in Food Freedom Forever, I have outlined several different resets that you can do, not all of which are as intense as the Whole30, but all of which will get you to the place where you know how food impacts you, and you're in a better balance in terms of your blood sugar regulation, hormonal balance, digestion, and immune system. So the Whole30 isn't the price of admission for food freedom, but I will strongly encourage everyone to do it. And I do several times in the book.
Awesome. So if you're looking to do something, your book will give you a few different options for things. I think, yeah, I did have the question as well as, you know, if I'm vegetarian, vegan, well, I can't have soy, so I can't have tofu, which I would usually have on the Whole30 strictly, but you definitely give people the option.
Yeah, there's a full vegan reset outlined here, and you're eliminating the most commonly problematic vegan protein sources, again, according to the literature and you know, in all of the resets, you're pulling out alcohol. Like, come on, guys. You're going to pull out alcohol for 30 days, right? In all of the resets, you're eliminating added sugar and some of those processed kind of food with no breaks, and some of those sweet treats and desserts and baked goods. Like all of the resets, that's kind of the very baseline of the elimination. There's a basic reset outlined in here that's like as bare bones as possible, but what I say in the book with all sorts of tough love, emphasis on the love, is if you're not willing to do at least this, like you're not ready for this program right now.
That's fair. That's fair. I like the tough love in the book. It's
Heavy
really
on the
great.
love.
Yes, of course. But it's very real. You give it to us straight. So
yeah.
I very much appreciate that. Have you ever had anybody go through the Whole30 program and do the whole reintroduction, and they're just like, I don't notice anything different. Like, I don't notice any of my allergies flare up or whatever, or I still had headaches the whole time. Is it anything like that?
Sometimes, you know, the Whole30 doesn't work super well for absolutely everybody. For some people, food may not be your biggest issue. If you've already been eating really squeaky clean or close to Whole30-ish, and you're already, you know, pretty healthy, like maybe there's something else going on. Maybe it's because you're only sleeping 5 hours a night, or you're you know, you're doing 2-a-day CrossFit sessions and not recovering actively. So, you know, food might not be your biggest issue. The Whole30 also can't fix everything. So if you've got this, you know, underlying undiagnosed gut infection, or you've got an autoimmune condition that you've been living with and it's been progressing for the last 20 years, like the Whole30 might give you a good start towards feeling better, but you may need to work with a functional medicine doctor to make sure, you know, that you're getting the treatment that's applicable for you. Yeah.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing that I think can be problematic is the whole thing around social networks, families. How do you navigate that? I know, like, going to my mom and saying, oh, I'm not eating gluten, dairy, I'm not having alcohol, I'm not eating, she'll just be like, well, don't come home.
Right, yeah.
So what do we do?
So not what you just said. That's a terrible way to do it. I actually have 3 chapters in Food Freedom Forever about how to talk to friends, family, and coworkers about food. 3 chapters. Not overkill, because talking to friends and family about food is third only to religion and politics in terms of how divisive it can be. You know, you start talking about food and changing your diet, and immediately people get judgmental, they get defensive, like, You don't have to do anything. You can just roll up to the table with your Whole30 meal, and the entire table all of a sudden feels like it's being attacked. So, you know, what I like to say is, A, don't have the conversation over food, right? Have it away from food, and ideally ahead of time. B, you always want to lead with all of the positive things, and you want to make the conversation as personal as is appropriate for your relationship. So if you're talking to your mom and you say, you know, I hear the Whole30 is really good for cravings, that's not going to particularly bring you close together. If you say, Mom, you know, you sent me home with your chocolate chip cookies the other day, and I said I was only going to eat one, and I ended up eating 5, and it makes me feel really bad about myself that I can't control what I'm eating. So I'm going to do this experiment for 30 days where I try to kind of break my reliance on sugar and change my cravings. It means I won't be able to eat your cookies, but it's only for a month, and when I get done, I'll be able to really enjoy them the way you want me to, right? That's a totally different conversation.
Totally different. Sounds very bad.
So make it personal and then make it relatable. So if your mom is mostly sedentary, you saying, I'm going to do the Whole30 and I'm hoping to cut my 5K time by 3 minutes, not relatable. If you know your mom also suffers from cravings or sleep or energy issues, you know, bond with her on that level. Man, every day at 2 o'clock, my head's on my desk and I feel like I need caffeine and chocolate. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, me too. I'm going to do this Whole30 because it's really meant to kind of reset your energy levels and give you that sort of awake feeling without needing extra caffeine. And now she's like listening, right? So those are my best tips.
Is that where you also say, maybe you should do it with me, or how does that work?
Tread very carefully with that, you guys. You know, the phrase I like to use is lead by quiet example.
Okay.
You can ask for her support. Mom, will you support me in this? If I'm having a tough day, can I call you and have you tell me what a good job I'm doing? But you don't want to ever push someone into trying to do it, right? Instead, just lead by quiet example. Look awesome, feel awesome, talk about your results, your non-scale victories. Hey mom, you know, I saw a plate of cookies at the office today and I wasn't even tempted. I feel so good. What a great, you know, sign that is. And then just sit back. Because at some point, they will say, like, what have you been doing? Tell me a little more about it. And maybe it will take them a while to get there, but, you know, you just do you.
Talk to me a little bit more about non-scale victories, because I think our society is really obsessed with like that number that appears whenever you get on it. How do you get away from that? What are things to celebrate? I mean, that's a good example.
Yeah.
Walking away from the cookies, I think it's huge.
It's huge. And so one of the other rules of the Whole30 is that you're not allowed to step on the scale for 30 days, which for some is the hardest rule of them all. But it is not a weight loss program, and it is not about weight. And you know, I think we all need a break from letting this like $20 hunk of plastic hold our self-esteem and self-confidence hostage. So we focus on what we call non-scale victories. And in Whole30 lingo, it's hashtag NSV. And what people will do is look for things like, you know, maybe some of them are physical. Maybe it's, oh, I'm down a belt loop, or my wedding ring now fits. It was too small and now it fits. I love hearing that. Maybe it's a craving thing, like I didn't need the cookie. I was able to walk past the cookie, or I didn't need the candy bar, or I finally feel like I'm in control of food. Maybe it's digestive, maybe it's skin glowing and clearing up. We hear a lot of that. You know, maybe it's I went to my doctor and my blood sugar is better managed, or I'm no longer type 2 diabetic. But there is this huge list of non-scale victories in a PDF we give you on the Whole30 sheet, and it's like, check them off, people, because the more you can check off, the more motivated you'll be to continue.
Totally. And so even after the Whole30, is it still no scale? Are you like anti-scale?
You know, I'm anti-scale if getting on that number actually matters. If you like with trepidation, close your eyes and cross your fingers before you step on that scale, maybe it's better to get off the scale. I have a scale at my house. I use it to weigh my suitcases, 68 pounds for this trip, 68, or to weigh my son. And occasionally I'll step on and just kind of see where I am, but like it doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
So I'm okay with weighing yourself before and after, because for some people, you know, obviously I understand weight loss is a big goal for a lot of people, and I don't want to minimize how amazing it is if you can eat to satiety and not count calories and still lose weight, like awesome. But, you know, if that number is going to ruin your day or make your day, maybe you should examine your relationship with the scale.
Totally fair, totally fair. In terms of other sort of technologies, I mean, we're Google, we kind of care about that. Are there things that you're on board with, against things that are helpful, thoughts on all like the fitness trackers, wearables, all kinds of like the posture coach and
all of those
the fork
things.
that you mentioned in your
The
book?
happy fork.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know about the happy fork. It vibrates to let you know if you're eating too quickly, So, but it's like $80. So I'm like, maybe you could just stop eating like you're in prison, you know. But
it's one of my favorite quotes.
I do like the wearables. If you are the kind of person who's motivated by like seeing your results, then things that can improve on the Whole30 or that you'll notice is like naturally your steps will go up because you'll feel better and you'll want to be more active and you'll park further away and you won't sweat taking the stairs. So like that's cool. Your sleep quality, being able to track your sleep and whether you're falling asleep easy or sleeping longer, getting more restful sleep, awesome non-scale victory on the Whole30. So if you can find some of those little kind of ways to not only track your progress, but like tie it to like, oh, wow, it's stuff that you wouldn't necessarily, I guess, link back to your diet, taking more steps. But if you see a change in that, it can be really motivating. Yeah.
So I have one last question for you before I open it up to everybody who's probably dying to ask you things, like stop talking. But I'm curious about just changing the whole relationship about good and bad foods and how do you even like get to that spot? Because I think it's a lot hard. It's really hard for people to know that, you know, it's not necessarily like this is good for you, this is bad for you, or you're a good person or a bad person. You talk a lot about the language of food. How do we change that?
It's really important. I think the language of food is often what's holding us hostage in our relationship. And what I really emphasize in the Whole30 and also in Food Freedom is like these foods that you're eliminating, it's not because they're bad. There's no like good or bad food. You're pulling them out and putting them back in because they're unknown. That's it. You just want to figure out how they work for you. And you are not good or bad based on the food that you put on your plate. And I think once we can get past the idea of, you know, our self-worth being tied to what our body weight is or what size jeans we fit into or whether we are the exerciser or the healthy person, I think it makes a huge difference in letting food be more fun and easy and playful and rewarding and like joyful. I'm not trying to take any of that away. So I write a lot about the idea of a growth mindset and changing your language and just kind of, it's a real shift, a reframe from the diet culture we've had for the last 20 years where it was all about deprivation and restriction and willpower and good foods and bad foods. And like, I want to change all of that paradigm.
So learning to kind of think about it in a different way than you do. I mean, it just seems so hard, but I think that you give a lot of great tips in the book. I won't spoil them all, but I mean, yeah, I think it's a challenge that needs to be solved.
Yeah.
It's so related to like the goods and the bads.
Yeah, but you know, the more you practice that, and I talk about things like leaving Post-it notes around your house, like it sounds kind of silly, but the more you can reinforce the ideas behind, you know, I'm a healthy person with healthy habits and I'm living a healthy lifestyle and, you know, this is a scientific experiment. It's an experiment, it's not a diet. And the more you can kind of reframe, and I really emphasize that over and over again, I think the better chance you have of that actually sticking and changing your foods and changing your relationship with foods and feeling like you're building new healthy habits will only serve to reinforce that.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Open it up. We have one right there. Yeah, sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming. This is really interesting. And as someone who's like generally a health-focused eater, but also kind of hasn't ever really dieted, I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on your last point there about the idea of like after you're done with the Whole30, kind of not thinking about foods as good and bad, because I know I don't know too much about the Whole30, but I've seen peers or people like on my Facebook or whatever doing it, and to me it always kind of worries me the idea of saying like you can't have these things, and you know, it seems a little bit sad if after the Whole30 would end then you still feel like I can't have, you know, the cookies, I can't have, even if you end up being okay with dairy and eggs, and you know, eating disorders are also a thing that like happens too. So I guess what's your perspective on after people finish the Whole30 and they figure out what they can and can't have, then transitioning to be like, okay, like now we're gonna bake pumpkin cookies and like I'm gonna have one and that's okay.
That's a really great question, and that's so much of that all or nothing is the diet mentality, right? I'm either on this diet and I'm white knuckling my way through it, or I'm face first in a box of donuts. And so I start from the very beginning, from your elimination period with the Whole30, saying you're not eliminating these foods because they're bad, they're just unknown. And you just want to figure out how they work for you. And it's not the whole 365, it's the Whole30. So it's a 30-day kind of scientific elimination period. And then after that, I want you to live in your food freedom. I want you to figure out what does work for you and what doesn't. In fact, the goal I propose in Food Freedom Forever is this. I want your diet to be as broad and expansive as possible while still looking and feeling as awesome as you want to look and feel. And you get to draw that line. I'm not drawing it for you. So I have figured out that I can get away with a couple glasses of wine here and there, some Justin's peanut butter cups here and there, my mom's chocolate chip walnut cake, and like, I still look just as awesome and I still feel just as awesome. So guess what? I do. Because it makes my life so delicious and healthy and rewarding and happy, like emotionally healthy. So I want you to do that. And if you start from the beginning not thinking about these foods as bad and that's why you're eliminating them, then you shouldn't feel the same guilt when you bring them back in. I don't want you to feel guilty reintroducing these foods. You may make the wrong choice sometimes. I may overdo it on the wine or my mom's chocolate chip walnut cake and I'm like, wow, that was a poor decision. You know, I don't feel as good and my energy's down, my mood is down. Okay, so I learned from that and I apply it the next time that situation comes up. But I encourage everyone to find that like line. How much can you get away with so that your life is amazing and rewarding and delicious and satisfying and full of your family and friend traditions while still maintaining all of the health benefits you want to maintain? So, yeah, thanks.
Just to follow up on that, what if you do overdo it and just like completely fall off after you've done your whole 30?
So one of the steps in Food Freedom Forever, so it's, you know, you do your reset, you live your food freedom, and you acknowledge that your habits have slipped. So I have built right into the plan that you will fall off the wagon. Isn't that relieving? Because all of these diets are like, oh, you're gonna do our 21-day detox and then you'll never ever have to diet ever again and like everything's gonna be magically changed, and that's completely unrealistic. Even for a program as good as the Whole30, and it's good in changing people's habits, eventually you fall back into old ruts. You're trying to overwrite decades of less healthy behaviors and associations and emotional relationships with food. You're not gonna fix that in 30 days. So if that happens, you just come back to your reset. Whether it's a full Whole30 or maybe a Whole3 or a Whole7, however long you need to feel back in control and to get that, you know, energy and sleep and mood and digestion rocking again, cool. You know it works. You know how to do it. You know it's going to make you feel amazing. And then as soon as you're done, as soon as you're able, as soon as possible, because I want you to get right back to your food freedom, you're back to living in your normal healthy balance again. It's like simple. And you continue that cycle literally in perpetuity until ideally you never need another Whole30 ever again. I'll probably never do a full 30 ever again. No, I don't need it. Right?
Does it get easier each time?
Of course it does.
Yeah.
It gets easier. You learn more. You become more selective about what's worth it for you. You identify foods that maybe don't work for you, but it's really nuanced, you know? Oh, I didn't notice this after my first Whole30, but by my third, I don't think this is worth it anymore. Yeah, it gets easier. And it just becomes what you do. You no longer even have to think about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, my name's Brooke. Thanks
Hi,
so
Brooke.
much for coming. I'm on day 10 of Whole30 Round 4.
Yay! Welcome
So,
back.
I've done it, this is my 4th time. I started a year ago, and I swear to God, it's like completely changed my life. So if anyone's doubting, like, you absolutely have to try it. I don't do the gluten or the dairy or alcohol anymore, and it's completely changed my life.
Yeah.
So thank you. So with all of these resets and having over the course of a year decided to eliminate those things, the one thing that does change and does kind of keep me going back to Whole30 is the fact that like the sugar thing sneaks in. So if it's like I love gummies and I love like almond milk ice cream and stuff like
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
But I noticed that actually, interestingly enough, like I lost a lot of weight at the beginning, and then eliminating all the foods that affect me poorly, my weight's actually kind of gone back up. I'm wondering what maybe like the scientific reason for that is, and if it is the sugar, like, I mean, that would make sense, but like I've heard also before perhaps that like your body kind of like level sets and like kind of recalibrates after you know, you kind of eliminate all these things. I was just wondering if you could speak to that a little
Yeah,
bit.
there's like a million questions I would have to ask you. So, you know, do you have a history of yo-yo dieting where you like lose and kind of gain?
Kind of, yeah.
How long are you sleeping every single night? What are you doing for exercise? Is it high intensity stuff? Are you adequately recovering from that? What does your life stress look like? Like we would sit down and have like a serious therapy session for me to talk about. Maybe it's the food. Maybe, you know, A food journal can be very helpful in this situation because I might say to you, like, how are you eating after your Whole30, Brooke? And you're like, I'm doing pretty well. And then if I made you write down every single thing, like not weighing or measuring, just write it down, you're like, oh, wow, that New Barn almond milk ice cream's coming back like a couple times a week. And, you know, we were having a conversation before about the bags of plantain chips. You think they're healthy. If you Hoover one of those, it is like 560 calories. And it's not the calories don't count, right? So, you know, it's basically like a mini meal all unto itself. So maybe a food journal, maybe it's the food. But maybe food isn't your biggest issue anymore, and maybe it's time to look at things like caffeine consumption and sleep, or what you're doing for training and recovery, or what's going on with your life stress. I know a lot of people who go on vacation and immediately they lose like 10 pounds, even though their eating habits dramatically change. And I'm like, well, shocking. You have no stress on vacation. Everything's easy and simple. So there's just so many factors that kind of play into that. Consider keeping a journal just for a few days after your Whole30 just to see if stuff is kind of sneaking back in. And then maybe consider going to work with a functional medicine doctor doing some very basic testing. Could be an underlying undiagnosed gut infection, for example. Really common in some of these cases. So it could be a number of things, but it's not always food. And I find when people do multiple Whole30s, they kind of want to tie everything back to food. And like food's a huge part of it, but it's not the only part.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And good luck.
Awesome. Thanks for coming. 2 questions.
Okay.
First one is a simple one. Just when you travel, how do you prepare for that, and what foods do you personally have? The second one is more just like, I'm curious on your journey to actually write this book and like be interested in this, because I had tons of dietary issues earlier, and I was placed on the low FODMAP diet,
Sure.
just like Whole30 but stricter,
Mm-hmm.
and it was phenomenal, changed my life. Now I'm like very paleo with a side of sugar, and so just like curious how you got to this point. Was it like you hit some mark and then you were like, wow, I need to change my life?
Oh, I did. I'll answer the first question first about travel. So my bag on the way for this book tour was 68 pounds, and I'm pretty sure 6 pounds of that were meat sticks, like jerky sticks. So I always pack a ton of emergency food, and I pack really healthy protein because that's the hardest thing to find when you're traveling. It's easy to find fruit and nuts and seeds, but so I'm packing like Epic bars and Wild bars and DNX bars and like the meat, sticks. I've got literally, if anyone wants to try one, I've got like 7 in my bag right now. I do as much research as I can ahead of time. So when I land, I know where the local health food store is. I know where the local grocery store is. I know a few good lunch options. I've already looked at the menu to make sure I can kind of wing it like anywhere at this point, but I still want to, make it as easy on myself as possible so that when I get there, I already have kind of a plan and I'm not like stuck in rush hour traffic after a really long flight, super hangry with nowhere to go for food. I make sure that my hotel has a refrigerator so I can stock up on a few things at the grocery store. So those are some tips that kind of make it easier. I wrote an article called Business Travel 101 on Whole30.com that lays out my incredibly anal retentive travel plan because I travel so much and it's really important to me to make it as stress-free as possible. As for my journey, I was not always a really healthy person. I'm actually a recovering drug addict. I've been clean for almost 17 years. And that, oh, thanks. I always feel weird when people clap for that. Like, I got myself messed up, so I'm not sure you should applaud me getting unmessed up, but it is a big deal. And I started in health and exercise and nutrition when I got out of rehab because I knew that I had to change everything about my life to stay clean. I had to adopt that growth mindset and convince myself that I wasn't some degenerate, worthless loser who couldn't change her life. So I started exercising and I started eating healthier and I got some fitness certifications and ran a CrossFit gym for a while and did some kettlebell coaching. And that was really where my path started, was through my own transformation. And so if you've done the Whole30, knowing this about my background, like the rules kind of make sense, the rigidity kind of makes sense, the sort of steps in the community kind of make sense because it was all of the things that I needed to get and stay clean 17 years ago. So yeah, there's a chapter on that here because if you looked at me now, I think a lot of people would say like, what do you know about feeling out of control with your food? I've never been overweight. That's not a struggle or a battle I've fought, but trust me when I say I have fought my battles, and drugs and food are not that different in terms of the impact they have on the brain and cravings and reward and your social interactions and your self-confidence. And so I do write about that. Thanks.
To follow up quickly on the the food, going out to eat, vacations, that sort of thing. I think one of the great things about Google, there's many, is that we get a menu every day and we see all of the things that are available to us, and it gives you all of the allergens. But when you go to a restaurant, you don't have that. So people who are not in this world, like, how do you navigate? What do you say? How do you go out for dinner?
Yeah, this is totally my process. The first thing I do is go on Yelp and I do a search for like American New or grass-fed burger or vegetarian breakfast, because for some reason the vegetarian breakfasts tend to kind of lead me to like the grass-fed, organic, kind of farm-to-table places. I look at the menu. If the menu looks pretty doable, I'm looking for simple protein options, so it's like a steak or grilled fish or, you know, eggs or a burger, like cool. I look at the sides. Do I have a bunch of veggie choices? Like great. Occasionally, if I have to, I'll call the restaurant ahead of time and say, look, I'm walking in, like, this is my stuff, and I don't make a big deal out of it. I don't eat this, or this right now. Do you have options that would accommodate me? Or when I come in, can I make some requests? I had a lamb burger at the Breslin last night. So good. But they don't do substitutions. That's very helpful to know up front. So I walked in and, you know, I did no bun, no cheese, and they did that, but they wouldn't substitute my salad dressing for a different dressing because it was cream-based. So I just asked for lemon and a little bit of olive oil, and they were cool with that. But it's good to know ahead of time. So just do your research ahead of time, and then when you get there, you know, make your order and be as matter of fact and kind of polite as possible. The bigger a deal you make about it, the bigger a deal everyone else is going to make. Like, so don't walk in there and be like, oh, I know it's so weird, and I'm going to be your special person, and I'm so sorry. Like, no, can I have this, and can I not have the bun and not have cheese, and can you sub the fries for, I see you've got broccoli in this dish. Can I just get some broccoli steamed on the side? Thank you so much. And then you tip very generously.
I like it.
That was actually one of my questions, but the other question is, how do you find the right time to do this? Because I always feel like oh, I can't this month, I have 2 client events, or I can't next month, it's, you know, Thanksgiving, or like, how do you find or prioritize the right 30 days to start?
That's a really great question. So first of all, you want to remember that it's not just 30 days, it's 30 days plus reintroduction. So I see people sometimes who are like, oh, my day 31 is my trip to Italy. And I'm like, ooh, you're really going to have a hard time reintroducing there. And if you don't reintroduce, you're missing a lot of the benefit of the program. So ideally, you're finding a 40-day block. I want you to not do the whole 30, ideally over the holidays. Like, that's just, right? That's just like asking for trouble. Plus, during the holidays, you've got a lot of these like once a year really special family foods, and I don't necessarily want you to miss out on that. So find a 40-day block where you don't have like an A-level race, or you're not getting married that month, or you don't have a once-in-a-lifetime vacation to Croatia, but a client event is not a good enough reason. I want you to figure out how to do this in all of life's circumstances: bridal showers, family dinners, client events, business lunches. Like, you need to figure out how to live in your food freedom, which may or may not include these foods going forward. So don't schedule around, you'll never find 40 days where the only thing you're doing is staying at home watching Netflix. Like, that's not going to happen. So make sure it's nothing that's so special you won't want to miss it. But I would include some of those kind of everyday but still special-ish occurrences, and then figure out how to make it work, right? You're ordering a sparkling water with lime, and you're just as festive, and you're just as cheersing, and it's just as happy in that hour. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
3.5 years and counting, and loving it, and loving every minute of it.
Cool.
I have one situation that continues to be challenging, which is, at this point, pretty much everyone in my life knows that I have eating habits that they might consider quirky or bizarre or against the conventional wisdom or whatever it is.
Sure.
Occasionally, I'm a guest in someone's house, which happened actually this weekend, where, oh, you can eat everything. It's all gluten-free and full of honey and artificial sweeteners and rice flour and all kinds of things that I'm not going near. How do you prepare for, well, I know how I prepare internally, but how do you prepare socially for those situations and handle those with a well-meaning host who is actually going against everything that you want?
I totally get that, and I had that situation at the holidays this past year, where I was served pasta full of ricotta cheese and was like, oh, this is going to be tough. Are you on the whole 30 during this situation, or is this just your food freedom, part of your food freedom? You're okay, so you're not on the whole 30. So this is one of those situations where you have to kind of weigh sticking to your preferences versus really hurting someone's feelings. Ideally, you're having a conversation ahead of time, if at all possible. Hey, I just want to let you know, just like if you were a vegetarian, for example, I just want to let you know that I don't eat this, this, and this. If that's going to be a problem with your menu, I'd be happy to bring a dish. Let me know what I could contribute. When you get there, if they've gone out of the way and said this is all gluten-free, but it's full of this other stuff, then it comes down to how bad is it going to mess you up? If it's going to seriously mess you up with migraines or headaches or asthma or whatever, then you have to politely decline and say, you know what, I really would love to, and I'm so thankful that you took the time to prepare this, but I really have a bad reaction with artificial sweeteners, and if I eat it, this is going to happen, so I'll politely decline, but thank you so much. If it's just a preference, then you have to think about, like, I might just take one for the team and eat as little as possible as to be polite. Share with someone else, pass your plate on to someone else, take a bite or two and say, this was amazing, thank you so much, but I'm saving for the next course if you know it's more edible. But this is where you kind of have to weigh, like, hurting someone's feelings and being gracious against what is really just a preference and not an actual, like, sensitivity. So I ate 3 bites of this pasta with ricotta, and I knew the dairy was going to kill me. Like, I spent the rest of the night not feeling well, but it was a woman I didn't know. I didn't have any opportunity to communicate. I ate a couple bites. I passed it along and said, I'm really saving for the next course, which I knew I could totally eat. And I sucked it up and took it. And so sometimes you just kind of have to decide what's worth it for you. Yeah.
My wife doesn't eat eggs, and I was wondering what kind of interesting options for breakfast that you would do during the Whole30.
I love that question. We get that question all the time. In fact, in the Whole30 book, there's a whole intro about what you can eat for breakfast if you're not eating eggs. So first of all, I really encourage people to get the idea of breakfast, lunch, dinner out of your head. We just call them meal 1, meal 2, and meal 3. And for meal 1, I'm just as likely to have a burger as I am to have an omelet. The other morning, I literally cooked a burger for my kid and I. Like, that was our breakfast. And it was amazing. So you can have absolutely anything you want. Leftovers for breakfast, or cook any kind of protein that you want. But if you want more of a breakfasty feel, we do have some really good recipes. So think things like, ground chicken and apples and sweet potato and a few diced walnuts with like a little apple cider vinegar, like a warm hash style. Sausage, whether it's pork sausage, ideally pastured and organic, or some kind of chicken sausage would be a good choice. Soups in the morning are good. I also love a good breakfast salad, which I know sounds weird, but I got into the habit of eating salad first thing in the morning when I was in Scandinavia and just fell in love with the idea. So maybe breakfast salads with some sort of protein on top that just feel almost so different that it's like cool that you're eating it for breakfast. But there are a lot. If you just Google Whole30 egg-free breakfasts, you will come up with a million different ideas from our community. Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? If not, that gives us perfect time for you guys to get the books, get some signing done. Great. And we want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all for having me. This was really fun. Thank you.